Hi, and welcome to the lecture on states. So this is going to further generalize what we've been talking about so we can start modeling, equipping entities with different states that they're going to need, okay? Because you can do, this will allow us to really equip them with sort of different order items. So it's absolutely what we need to be using for our, the project with the barbecue. Okay, so in our current Nimitz coffee bar, again, you should have that open so we can see it. You can see the example of how it works out. We have these three entities. And instead of thinking about the entities as the thing moving towards the system, we want to think about entities as different things that we can attach. We have different kinds of entities. These are kind of the order entities. And we want to get back to thinking about the customer entities or the midshipman entities as being the things moving through the system, and then they have the property of one of these entities. That's how we want to start to think about it. Okay, so we need to get to model entity state. So over here, what you need to select is you need to select on the right-hand side the model entity. So this is how you get to the access to this. And when you see this, what will happen is you'll see the tabs change up here. Remember, we have these sort of dynamic changing of tabs. And here, this will be on the process. And it sort of gives you the process by which entities move through the system, how the model is moving through the system. Okay, so here we want to click on elements. We click on the definitions tab, and we're going to define a new element here. Okay, the element we want to define is we want to click here on states because we actually want to click down to a new model entity state. Okay. And, well, what do we want? Well, we want to model out whether or not we want the row number of the coffee type table. We want it to be either 1, 2, or 3 based on whether or not it's a small, medium, or large. Okay, so we're going to call that the integer state 1. So we click up here for integer because we know we have 3 different things. Okay, and we relabel it. We relabel it to something so that we understand what we're talking about. This will be the coffee type state. Okay. Okay, so how do we work with this now? We go back to, now that we have that state, that's just going to be the container that holds it. We go down here to cash register, and we have a state assignment. That's where we're going to start giving it. We're modeling really exactly what happens. The custom client comes in, we don't know what their state is. In some sense, this is a fairly exact model. It's at the state assignment that we're going to choose this. Okay, so here, after processing, that's when we have the state. That's when we know the order type. Okay. Again, you get the three dots in that window, and you click on it, and there's going to be, it comes up, we're going to add, and when you add, you get this sort of default setting, so it's very blank. We need to change that. Well, what do we change it to? We're going to, the state variable name is model entity.coffeeTypeState. That's that state thing that we just created. And then the new value is determined by coffeeTypeTable.probability.randomRow, and that's going to assign it the row number from that coffee type table. So that's how we hook. It's this piece right here that combines the data table to the state variable. Okay, so very important that we do that there. Okay, so now we have items, and it's a model. It's the variable name is now model entity.coffeeTypeState. Okay. Now we have to adjust our entity accordingly, because right now, unless we adjust it, so we have to go back to our model, and we have to adjust that in the facility tab. And we have to adjust the fact that initial arrivals now are no longer being tied to small, medium, large. However, do not delete the coffee entities. You need those two. Those have to be around. If you delete it, you're going to get a problem. And the reason why, the kind of error you're going to get is down here. If you don't have those entities around, the small, medium, and large, you're going to get error text that looks like this here. Okay, so we need to adjust our data table. And so then we can add, so we get that, we can add a coffee size, small, medium, and large. So this is another way you can do that. So you put in a coffee size, small, medium, large there. And then you have to adjust your arrivals. So now we have to say, all right, your so actually the way I did this was slightly different. I just left the entities there, and then that would work. Professor Spursco did it a slightly different way, where she changed the order of the columns. So either way will work. So the other thing we have to do is now for the entity type, remember the old way we had doing it was we were assigning the type based off of the coffee size. Okay, so we don't want to do that. So instead, we're going to make the entity type back to mid-shipment, to customers again. Okay, and then because remember it's at the cash register that they get assigned now the kind of order they are. Okay, so that's how you do that. Now the processing time at the self-service, remember that was 2 rows here. Okay, so that we have to change it so that it's referring now, instead of to the entity type, it has to refer to the state variable. Okay, so we go into that logic again, and now we change it so now it's referencing the coffee type table, and then it has to look at, it uses the model entity.coffee type state, which remember is the right row number. So it's coffee type table, square bracket. So make sure you use square brackets there. And then it's referencing that row number that got assigned when they did the order. And then it's that fill time of that. So the dot tells us, okay, use the column fill time. The row number is determined by model entity.coffee type state. We have to adjust the self-service even further. Remember, we have to make sure that the materials being used are also referencing the coffee type table of the correct row number of the model entity.coffee type state. Okay. Now we might want to track statistics. Again, this is something that you're going to have to do with that. So we're going to go again. We're going to click on the model now, and we click on definitions. And here, we're going to click over here on the states now of the model. Note that this is different than the states of the model entity. Okay, so for the coffee sizes, that was model entity. For this coffee size statistics, this is the model itself. That model might be something named differently. You just have to remember look at the shapes. The model entities have that sideways triangle. Model is just the circle. Okay, so we're going to create 3 integer state variables, and these are going to be the number of small, medium, and large coffees. Okay, so we call this, say, number small coffee. There can't be any spaces in it, so it has to be all grouped together. And we do that 2 more times and create the number of large coffee and the number of medium coffees. Okay, so now we've created the variables now we need to populate those variables with numbers. So to populate them, we come to the sink. Remember, there's some bulking reneging in this model, so we have to figure out, well, what's the right part of this network to tabulate these numbers, and it turns out it's the sink here, because remember some customers are going to go over here depending on what the size of the lines are. Okay, so on entering there, we look at the state assignments of the property menu of the mid-exit. And then what we do is we're going to add a new row. Okay, this is the default row setup. And we're going to say, okay, well, we'll actually add 3 rows. The first row is going to be number small coffee. That's the state variable name that's going to be affected. And we replace it with itself plus, and again, we're referencing the model entity.coffee type state. And if that's equal to 1, remember that's row number 1, and that was small. So if that's true, then we add 1 to it. And we do the same thing for 2 and 3 for the rest. We reference if this model entity.coffee type state equals 2 or equals 3 for these guys here. Okay, and then we look at our output statistics. Okay, so we want to make sure that we output this all. So we have to make sure that these are also part of that. And we add that to, we do that for all 3 of them. And remember, for each one, the state variable that we output in our state. So this is in elements and definitions. And we have an output, our state statistics, and we output those, and we make sure that we reference the correct variable name. Okay, so that makes sure that it'll be part of the results screen. Okay, when you do that, what you'll see is that there's going to be these rows, and it'll have all these stats, and it should have roughly the proportions that you would expect from the probability of choosing one of these.